Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, 2,500 athletes set for continental relays. Coming from the world of boxing, Confederation African Sports rejects International Boxing Association's appeal. And in football, West Ham then Tottenham hopes at getting a European sport. Details of these and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Stay with us.
Telling him not to counterpunch. Telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome back. Kinsley's here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Siri. Very happy to be here this morning.
Okay, the Okpekpe race is on again. We understand the organizers of the competition, which is a 10-kilometer race. And of course, the very first World Athletics label leading up is here with us in Nigeria.
Yes, I think it's a very good one. From what we've seen at this point in time, I think the organizers for the Okpekpe race, they've actually taken this race, of course, to another level. Of course, you will see one of the most recognized, marathon race, we have down here in Nigeria. It's been an impressive one,
10 years in Nigeria, we'll be having this race.
10 years, and it's a very huge one, and it has actually been recognized, by World Athletics. And for what we've seen at this point in time, I think the organizers are really building a very huge brand. We always see, foreign athletes, coming to participate in this one, and then, going back with some the likes of the likes of Kenya, the likes of the Ethiopians as well. We've seen them most of the time. Uganda, not also left out as well. Coming up to participate in this particular one. I think huge kudos, of course, to the organizers, for branding this particular race. I think it's then time Nigeria as well should start looking in that direction of marathon. Whenever you talk about marathon, in any championship, we always mention the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, Uganda, and the rest of them. In Nigeria, we don't really have that prowess, when it has to do with marathon. But having such a race, of course, in the country, I think athletes should start capitalizing on this one and start seeing how to gain from it, so that whenever we go down to global competition whereby we have to participate in marathon, we can also see Nigerians as well, living up to expectation in marathon races.
Wow, Nigeria doing well, and of course getting pure classification. One of the 10 races in marathon taking place in Nigeria. Okpekpe race. Of course, Okpekpe is a town in Edo State, and it promises to be thrilling anytime from now. Just about a few weeks from now, May to be specific, this race will be on here in Nigeria. One of the 10 best races in marathon around the world. Meanwhile, in Ibadan, we understand there will be a squash tournament to be hosted in that city. Squash doesn't seem to be getting the kind of prominence you expect here, but this is one for the under-16 boys and girls national squash tournament.
Yes, I think it's an impressive one. Organizers, as well as the Squash Federation, are looking forward to see how they can bring squash to the limelight. I was seeing other sports, of course, in the category of squash. I mean category of the squash, at the level of, let's say, popularity down here in Nigeria. I talk about Scrabble. Scrabble has really got some momentum because of the way we've seen the federation, talking about the Scrabble Federation, pushing the sports. I think at some point we saw some Scrabble players in Nigeria here, putting up some impressive performance in so many championships. I think squash is also one of them, is one sport, of course, we should really capitalize on at this point in time. And coming up down there, I think is a good one. This time around is in collaboration, of course, with the Squash Federation. I think it will really go a long way in, letting people understand what the sport, squash, of course, really mean, and as well, taking squash, to another level. So for me, I think it's a good one. At least, organizing squash events, for this age, for this on the 16 and on the 19, I think is very good. We should. This is the only means whereby we can start building, squash, putting that mentality, to these young ones. I think it really go a long way in helping the federation, of course, to unearth, talent, when it has to do with squash as a sport in the country.
Squash doing well for the under 16 and under 17 boys and girls. But in this event, we understand the top 4 best squash players in Nigeria will be on showcase. Kingsley, what does that mean?
I think it's just to make sure that having the top players, of course, is just to make sure that the event gets more recognition and a means of motivation to those younger players, of course, that are coming up. They will have a lot, of course, to learn, from those top players, as it says. So for me, it's a good one. Kudos to the organizers, of course, for putting this one together. And I heard that, of course, getting to the round of 16 in this one, some of the players, of course, will be going home with a very huge amount of money. It's a good way, of course, motivating, these young players in making sure that they participate and find interest and being committed in squash.
Get to the round of 16 and get the payout, but if you win the competition at the age of 16, you have a 1 million naira bank balance. That's quite a big one, if you ask me, in squash here in Nigeria. Away from squash, let's look at tennis. And in tennis, there seems to be some there's a disaffection because Nigeria's top tennis player, Haruna Quadri, is not not happy, owing to the fact that the World Table Tennis body is owing him some money. This is unheard of in tennis.
Yeah, the man is not happy because the World Table Tennis Championship, of course, they actually placed, of course, a sanction on him. The fact that he didn't participate, I think, in the World Championship as well as the World Table Tennis Championship. There was 2 events, of course, that he didn't participate. And Aruna, of course, is not happy because I think during the World Table Tennis Championship, where he was supposed to participate for Team Nigeria, we got a story that he had diarrhea and couldn't participate in that particular event. And the other championship as well, he said, of course, he had, some club activities, and that's why he couldn't participate, in that championship, that he won't neglect, of course, his club side. Talking about Gazprom, that pays him salary, every time, to come participate, for the champion, for the World Table Tennis Championship. That he actually prefer playing, of course, for his club than coming down to the World Table Tennis Championship. So with this, the man, of course, has been sanctioned, and that has also affected his ranking, as it is. So that's why Aruna is not really happy. He's accusing the World Table Tennis Federation of racism, and of course not giving him that proper recognition, as he deserves, as a big table tennis, player at this point in time. But if you take a look at it, I think Aruna's point is right, because in his absence in the World Table Tennis Championship, he actually told them that he has diarrhea, he could not participate in the other events as well. The man, of course, has to tell him that he's engaged with his club, that he won't be able, of course, to participate. So for me, I think the World Table Tennis Championship, for me, I don't think they've actually gone the right direction when it has to do with this particular issue. And for Runa as well, crying out now at this point in time, I think the man is right, because he actually sent of course, a notification to them that I won't be participating in social tournament. These are my reasons. They would have acted on it immediately, than coming up to tell him that, of course, that he missed 2 championships, and for that he will be sanctioned. And as well, his ranking point, of course, will be affected. And that's why the man, of course, is not happy at this point in time, and is expecting, of course, a better treatment from the World Table Tennis Federation.
No doubt about it. Haruna Quadri, Nigeria's top tennis player, and of course known in Africa as well, deserve to be treated well by the World Table Tennis body. After all, he's a highly ranked player in tennis in the world. Meanwhile, we'll go from table tennis now. We'll go to lawn tennis, and in lawn tennis, #1 seed Jessica Pegula is in upbeat mood as he has an opponent another American as well, Charles Sutton coming up. It was just that match was yesterday. Yes, 3-6, 6-4, 7-6. It did end against an Mova.
Impressive one, of course, for Jessica Pegula, rank number 5 now in the WTA ranking. Jessica Pegula, of course, is one player that everyone, of course, has been expecting, to live up to expectation, to challenge when it matters most. But most of the time, we'll not see her, put up that huge challenge with the likes of, maybe Iga Swiatek, Arina Sabalenka. We'll talk about Elena Rybakina, and the rest of them, and Kokura. But she's always been there and not going far, but still trying as much as she can to get something. But this is another opportunity for her. Let's see how she can actually go in this particular one. Was a little bit, of course, an easy encounter, though she lost the first set, but was able to bounce back in the second set and the third set of that particular one. It's a good one for, Jessica Pegula. But the truth, the main thing is, can she be consistent? Can she maintain the momentum, down to, of course, when it matters most, in this particular one? That's always a big question, around Jessica Pegula. But keep our fingers crossed. Or hope, of course, she takes on with this performance and as well, maybe get to the finals of the competition.
Well, we hope she can get straight to the final, because this is an ATP, WTA 500 event, and she should be able to take this one, no doubt. But this is an event where younger players as well try to make their marks on the Kingsley.
Yeah, younger players, of course, try to make their mark. It's actually an opportunity where, you actually used to get maybe a little bit of point for yourself and strengthen yourself, for, other competitions that are coming as well. And we saw that Danielle Collins as well, coming up with another impressive performance after winning the Miami Open, over the weekend. She actually took out Paula Badoza in this particular one, 6-1, 6-4. It ended in that particular encounter between Danielle Collins and Paula Badoza. I think Danielle Collins, of course, she's actually gotten her mojo this time around after that impressive performance at the Miami Open. Maybe we can start seeing more, from her. Though she says she's going to retire soon, looking at the fact that, looking at her age and all of that. But I think we might just see the best of Danielle Collins before she calls it a quit in tennis.
Ons Jabeur is in this one as well. Ons Jabeur, Africa's best tennis player, female tennis player from Tunisia.
Yeah, Ons Jabeur is in this particular one, and she'll be facing, Collins after the impressive victory against Paula Badoza. It's going to be an interesting one, of course, to watch out for. Ons Jabeur, also one lady that everyone, of course, has been giving that much kudos, and credit. But a lot of self is there expected from Ons Jabeur. Last season, we saw her, coming up a bit, actually getting to different Grand Slam finals and still being unable to win. And this time around, of course, another season for her. We saw a little bit of performance, from her at the Australian Open, but since then, she has not really been, of course, on her best. But it's going to be an interesting, encounter to watch between Danielle Collins, who is firing at the moment, against Ons Jabeur. And I think for me, Ons Jabeur will want to make a statement from this, and that's more of the reason why Danielle Collins, of course, should be very careful in this particular encounter.
Ons Jabeur, Africa's best female tennis player, lost at 3 consecutive Grand Slam finals, and I hope that she can build up with the tournament leading up to yet another Grand Slam, where we expect her to be at very crucial stages. Away from tennis now, let's go to the mixed martial arts, and something great is happening. Nigeria's female fighting sensation, Police Corporal Juliet Uka of the Police College in Ikeja, has defeated Eunice Akelo of Uganda in Enugu to extend our unbeaten run in the mixed martial arts. This is great. The Police Corporal is unbeaten so far in mixed martial arts.
Yes, an impressive one, of course, for Uka. And for what we're seeing, there's been an impressive ride, of course, for the Mixed Martial Arts Federation trying to put, a championship like this. And it is actually, of course, the first
5 wins now, 5 matches and 5 wins.
Yeah,
no draw, no loss.
5 matches and 5 wins. Impressive one, of course, for her. And this is the first time, of course, of fighting in Nigeria, and actually a very huge one, as well, for her. I think it's really something huge. When you talk about mixed martial arts in the country, I think the Mixed Martial Arts Federation was put up last year, and from what we've seen, they've been working tirelessly to make sure that they groom mixed martial arts, at taste. And for what we've seen at this point, we started seeing names, like Uka, and the rest.
Uka, she's nicknamed the Golden Bone, apparently because of the power in her kicks.
If you take a look at her as well, she's looked very, very strong. Of course, as a mixed martial artist, you need to be very, very strong, because mixed martial arts is a sport whereby you have to go with your hands, your legs, and your body. So you have to be physically fit, and that's what, of course, she's made up of. A good one for her. Impressive, right so far. 5 matches, and she's won all, at this point in time, going on beating. I think we should be looking forward as well to see more from her.
More is coming in the way of Uka. They call her the Golden Bone, representing Nigeria in mixed martial arts. She's had 5 fights. This is her first time in Nigeria, fighting Nigeria, but she's had 5 fights, like I mentioned, all no defeat at all, no draw for her, winning all 5 of the fight. Congratulations there. Well, let's go to boxing now. And in boxing, the Court of Arbitration for Sports only yesterday threw out an appeal from the International Boxing Federation after it was stripped of its rights to organize boxing events at the Paris Olympic Games. The International Olympic Committee, we understand, withdrew its recognition of boxing governing body, the International Boxing Association, last year, due to, of course, lasting concern about governing issues. Is this one good from the Court of Arbitration of Sports?
No, not really good. Not really good, because I think for me, if at the end of the day we don't see boxers, participating in this coming Olympics, it's going to be very, very disappointing. A lot has actually gone down in different, countries in preparing their boxers, for this one, especially down here in Nigeria. We hear that there have been lack of transparency in terms of, I think, the way the governing body of the Boxing Federation have actually gone. I think that's why the IOC, of course, they are actually trying most can to see how they can actually stop them. But for me, I think they shouldn't make all of this politics, to affect the talent. Talking about the boxers that are very much ready to go down to the Paris Olympics, of course, to participate in this particular hour. Now, boxing has been part of every Olympics, since 1920, but it only went ahead, in COVID delayed. We saw boxing as well in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic, but they had a little bit of issue talking about the boxing body. They had, I think, was it transparency or they were not really transparent, with the way they've gone about, handling that particular federation. That's why the Olympic Committee are coming up to say that they might not, of course, give them the room, to participate in this one. But for me, it's really going to be a setback, because everyone is also looking forward to see boxing, and some countries are also, relying on boxing, of course, to grab medals, especially for Team Nigeria. We saw what we saw at the All African Games. Our boxers, of course, were very, very fantastic. So not participating, if this decision, of course, stand before the Olympic, commences, it's going to be a very huge setback, for some athletes and for some countries who have actually invested a lot, of course, to prepare their athletes for the qualifiers and also prepare them ahead of the Olympics. So for me, I think before the Olympics, of course, kicks off, there should be a remedy to all of this situation in order for we to see boxing at the Paris Olympic Games.
Well, we hope that the continuous quarrel between these two bodies should be sorted out, because it doesn't look well if at the end of the day there's a pullout from most of the top-level boxers that are under the International Boxing Association going to the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games should showcase the biggest and, of course, toughest fighters in the art of boxing. Time for us to take a break. When we return from the break, we go to the ever-busy world of football, but then there's something happening in Formula One. There is an early exit for McLaren. We hope something has not really gone too bad there as well. Then in football, it is getting more interesting across Europe, especially in Premiership in England, where Arsenal just drop points and Manchester City drop points, while Liverpool FC did gain points at the top of the Premier League. Details of this and many more coming your way. Stay with us.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome back. Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and it is getting very interesting this weekend, and we've seen actions in Formula One. But the one that is off the grid has to do with the leading engineer, David Sanchez, who we understand has just left McLaren. He joined McLaren just about 3 months ago from Ferrari, and now the Frenchman has complained about the recruitment structure of McLaren technical department.
Yep. Talking about Sanchez, I think he was actually being brought into the McLaren team for restructuring. There were lots of course restructuring process in McLaren, and he was one of the person that was brought, of course, to aid that restructuring process. And I think the man is done with his job. He has to leave, of course, at this point in time as it stays. So. But what we're saying, not very big of an issue. And from the reports, of course, we're getting that McLaren team principal Adri Stella, will fulfill Sanchez's role until a permanent appointment, of course, is made. Not a bad one. I think the man is done with his job in terms of the restructuring for McLaren, and he has to leave at this point in time. For me, I think that will not bring, of course, a shake or probably any setback to McLaren, because the man has done a job and he has to leave. He's now left for McLaren, of course, to continue from what he's been able to do and see how they can build momentum as well this season. Let's just see how it goes for McLaren. For me, I think it's not a setback for them. They're actually prepared for this, knowing that the man will be staying for too long, based on the fact that he wasn't given a permanent, of course, appointment. We just hope that McLaren will, of course, be able to see how to fill in the gap and move on this season.
McLaren definitely has to see how to fill the gap, because you need a top-level engineer to take care of the cars that are being used out there. Now, let's quickly get to football, and of course, we start from the local scene, where Coach White Obonda of Rivers Angels has dispelled notions in some quarters that his team is under pressure ahead of the very crunch encounter against Sunshine Queens.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, going to be a tight one, but I think for me, they should be able to build on the last game we saw at the Adoke Mesimaka Stadium against Delta Queens. It ended 1-0 in favor of Rivers Angels in that particular one. They were able to grind out that result for themselves. They should be able to build, on that particular victory against Delta Queens. I know playing at home, playing away from home, of course, is always not easy. As it is, this game, of course, is going to be held at the Akure Township Stadium. And a lot, of course, is expected from Rivers Angels, looking at the fact that they are also eyeing Continental Sports, at this point. So it's going to be a very, very huge encounter for Rivers Angels. We hope that they'll be able to live up to expectation.
Well, while we talk about female football there, let's see what's happening in the male category. Of course, the Premier League here in Nigeria is expected to see a very crunch tie. Yes, when Enyimba International plays Kano Pillars, these are traditional club side here in the Premier League football in Nigeria. You understand the expectation. This will be the 24th time they will meet since the last 14 years or thereabout. Kingsley, what do you expect of this one? A crunch game coming up in Aba today?
It's going to be an impressive one. It's going to be a very, very tight encounter, because you take a look at the teams, Enyimba and Kano Pillars. They've actually done well for themselves, so far. Right now, Enyimba, of course, seated number 4 on the table with 45 points. Just 3 points, of course, are due for league leaders Enugu Rangers, and they want to fight, for the 3 points, into this encounter. Not forgetting of the fact that they are at home. they want to capitalize that home advantage against, Kano Pillars. We've seen Kano Pillars, they've gone away to, of course, lose some of their games. So getting down to the Aba Stadium, but no matter how formidable they've been so far, I don't think it will be easy for them to take, of course, 3 points or probably a point, away from the Aba Stadium. I think Enyimba has what it takes, looking at the fact that they are eyeing the league title once again. They are also looking for that continental spot. Sitting fourth position, I don't think Enyimba are really comfortable at this point in time. From what we've seen so far, they've been very, very fantastic in their last 2 or 3 games. I think they want to go on with that same momentum going forward in that encounter.
Well, let's hope that they will just make the league very proud with the quality of play, because these two teams are very exciting ball juggling side, and we hope that Aba today will witness one of the best Premier League encounters we'll find around in the last few years. Meanwhile, it's not only in Aba we'll see action this today, where there's action at the Pantamin Stadium in Gombe, where Remo Stars will be visiting Gombe United.
Yeah, it's going to be an impressive one. Gombe United not been very fantastic, struggling on the relegation zone at this point in time. They've actually made, a managerial change, as it is, and trying to see how they can make the team, of course, survive relegation. Gombe United are rocking bottom of the table at this point in time with just 32 points after 28 games. Not a very good position. I think they want to really fight, in this particular encounter against, Remo Stars. It's going to be a very, very tight one. I think Gombe United will be coming all out, in this one, because I think they want to do everything they can to survive that relegation. For Remo, I think they just want to see Remo. They've been also formidable. Ogumudede, the coach of the side, has been, pressured. He has been taxed over time, of course, to deliver the maybe continental sport once again, or this time a title especially, for the team. Yes, he has done so well since Remo Stars, came back to the Nigerian Premier Football League, but not just going to the continent and coming back and you don't go far, and we don't as well try to win the title. It's actually a private run club, and they actually need a lot, of course, this season, talking about the management. So for me, it's going to be a very tight one. Gombe United will be going out, like I said, to get this one, looking at the fact that their eyes are red and they want to, survive relegation.
Red Eye Gombe United wants to survive relegation. Pantamin Stadium today will decide whether they have 3 points that will lift them or further drop them at the relegation zone. Shooting Stars of Ibadan is home to Kwara United. This looks like neighbors who know themselves.
Yes, neighbors, of course, who knows themselves. Shooting Stars, they've not actually done bad. For what we've seen, they're 8th, of course, on that particular position on the MPFL table. Benga Ogungbuti, of course, the man heading the side. Since he came in, I think we've seen a little bit of rejuvenation for that Shooting Stars side. A lot, of course, to be expected in that particular encounter. But I still see Shooting Stars, of course, trying, as much as they can, to get a favorable result in that particular game.
Rangers International at the Cathedral against Sunshine Stars of Akure.
It's going to be a very, very tight one, Mr. Siri, because Fidelis Lechuku is really doing everything he can to see if he can win the league this time around. Rangers are top of the table with 48 points. And don't forget, Sunshine Stars is being led by Kennedy Baboye this time around. The two managers are traditional managers at the MPFL. They have the knowledge, of for the game. So it's going to be a very tight one for Rangers. And for what we're seeing at this point in time, maybe the home advantage, of course, might play for Rangers, in this particular one. Because looking at the fact that they've been formidable, I think they've not lost in their past 9 games, if I'm not mistaken, down there, for Rangers. I think they'll want to continue with that same momentum, going forward against Sunshine Stars today.
Kennedy Boboye, 2 times winner of the Premier League, trying to see how to bring Sunshine Stars to the top level in Premier League football here in Nigeria. Meanwhile, Insurance of Benin is at the Samuel Osai Stadium in Benin against Niger Tornadoes.
Insurance, I think another moment for them, of course, to showcase themselves. Niger Tornadoes, they've not been a better side, of recent. And I think they can capitalize, on this particular one. They lost their last game, talking about Bender Insurance, and they want to, of course, redeem themselves against Niger Tornadoes. But won't be an easy task. Will not be an easy ride at all for Bender Insurance. We just hope, of course, they'll be able, of course, to get a victory in that particular encounter.
At Umuahia Township Stadium, it will be Abia Warriors playing at home against Plateau United. Plateau United seem to have lost some steam.
Yes, of course, they seem to have lost some sleep because at some point, they were actually looking forward, of course, to get a continental spot and as well, win the league title. But they are still fighting, for a continental spot. Mike Kaba, since he went down there, I don't think he's actually done badly. Plateau United is one side, of course, he really understands, and he's been able, of course, to grind out the results. And I think they also have what it takes, of course, to put up a very, very strong challenge into this game.
Harlan FC of Owerri will make a short trip across to Yenegua at the Samson Siasia Stadium to be waiting to Bayelsa United. Bayelsa United seem to have done well in the last few games, but Harlan FC had neck deep in relegation.
Yes, Adland, of course, struggling, and the struggle, of course, it continues for them. They're out of the Federation Cup as well. Nothing for them this time around. And now another struggle as well for them. They are seated 19th on the MPFL, table. Not a very good one, of course, for Hadland at this point in time. Christian Obi is one of the coach that has been heavily criticized this season in the Nigerian Premier Football League due to, of course, how we've seen him manage the team. The boys, of course, are not doing well under him at this point in time. So Heartland might just be going to relegation once again at the head with Christian Obi this time around, because they've not been that formidable. They were playing against Bayelsa United, who looks a little bit rejuvenated, this time around. And Bayelsa United will not want to leave any stone unturned in this particular encounter. It's really a very huge struggle and a very huge worry, of course, for Heartland this time around. I don't think they might, survive, this relegation. Looking at the way things has been, the players were not happy. Don't forget, some of the players' salaries were slashed due to the poor results, of course, we've seen at this point in time. Christian Obi has been putting pressure. But you can't put pressure when the players, of course, their minds are not happy. How would they deliver at the end of the day? So a lot is really going on in Heartland FC. Let's see what comes up today. But I think Bayelsa United will be very, very tough for them today.
Sporting Lagos is up against Lobby Stars. In Lagos, Sporting doesn't seem to falter.
Of course, yes, they doesn't seem to falter, but of recent, they've not gotten it, right. Don't forget, they lost to Intercity in the FA Cup as well. Things have not really gone well for Sporting.
FA Cup, the shocks in the FA Cup. This is the Premier League.
Yeah, this is the Premier League as well. Though they've not done badly, when you take a look at it, they are 11th on the log in the Nigerian Premier Football League. But the way they started and how they came into the league, everyone expected Sporting Lagos, of course, probably will be fighting for continental sport. They even assured the fans that they will win the league when they started, the Nigerian Premier Football League. But
that's an ambition. It's an ambition.
Things actually fell apart for them. But we hope, of course, they'll be able to maybe try to, put some smiles, on the faces of their fans, because, it's not really been rosy with Sporting Lagos. It's
been rosy at the Godswill Aquabio Stadium in Uyo for Aqua United. Since they returned from Eket, they've been gaining points, maximum points at Uyo, unlike what we saw them at Eket. Doma United is their guest today.
Doma United, yeah, it's going to be a very tough one, but we'll see a different mentality now in Aqua United. Don't forget, they've gotten a new manager who is there to help them survive relegation this season. So we'll be seeing a different mentality now in Aqua United. It's not going to be easy for Doma United. Yes, Doma United, they're also another struggling side we've seen since the second stanza of the Nigerian Premier Football League, started. And it's going to be a very tight one. But Aqua United, of course, having been, shaped and also being motivated by the management, I think they will really go a long way in trying to get another 3 points. Don't forget, it's been an impressive ride for Aqua United in their last 3 games. We saw them going down to, I think against Plateau, of course, to get a favorite point away from home. That was something nobody saw coming. And the boys are highly motivated at this point in time. They want to do everything they can to survive relegation.
Well, talking about league fixtures today, one team will not be in action. In fact, two of them will not be in action. Rivers United, we understand, will be leaving any moment soon to Algeria to take on USM Oja in the return leg fixture in the CAF Confederation Cup quarter-final pairing. And so the encounter today with Katsina United has been postponed by the league organizing body.
Yes, I think that's a very good, plan and very good, approach, from the league body. You have to give them that opportunity, making sure that they prepare, traveling to Algeria, getting, tickets and all of that, not really that easy. So they have to travel in time, go down there and get themselves, prepared. Of course, you know how these North African teams, of course, always treat Nigerian teams. So they have to go down there and get themselves familiarized and make sure that they're able to get a favorable result. Because what we saw at the Goslakbabi International Stadium was nothing to write home about. We saw them missing chances. At the end of the day, they won that one by 1-0, and that was not a very good result against a defending champion. Talking about the USM Orges. I think Rivers United, they should actually do whatever they can. They should fight by all means when they get down to Algeria to see how they can get this one. Because from what we've seen at this point in time, looking at the fact that the Algerian players were not in the right frame of, right frame of mind. They were actually playing that game during the Ramadan period, and most of the players didn't eat, they didn't drink, and they were able to muzzle out that particular performance, down there. So, going down to Algeria when they will be well fed, what kind of, how do you, that means we should be expecting more from them. So, I think Rivers United should do everything they can to see how they can actually get something in this particular one. Last time, they were hosted us at the quarterfinal stage. This time, they should try as much as they can to get past the quarterfinal stage of the CAF Confederation Cup.
Well, let's go straight to see how the Super Falcons are getting ready to host their counterparts from South Africa, the Bayana. This is the current tie, first leg, and of course the return leg feature will be in South Africa in a bid to qualify for the Olympic Games. Which of the female side will it be representing Africa? Will it be the Super Falcons or the Bayana from South Africa? First leg in Nigeria.
Yes, they already, Bayana, they came in early. I think they as of Sunday, they were already in Nigeria. They started training on Monday, getting ready, of course, for this particular one. And something is actually not going well with the Super Falcons of Nigeria, because some of their players, like Ashley Prompter, she won't be in this one. And that's, of course, you will see a little bit of setback, because Ashley Prompter has been a formidable player, especially in the defense, for Coach Randy Wardrum in this one. And one of our very best players, talking about Asile Shola, will be coming on Thursday ahead of the game on Friday. And everyone expected, of course, to be in the camp at least 2 to 3 days before, the match day. You coming on Thursday and you're playing a game on Friday. How will you get that synergy, of course, with the rest of the players? So I just hope that all will be well for the Super Falcons in this particular encounter. Because if you take a look at where the Bayana girls are preparing, even the coach Elise, she's saying that she doesn't want any sentiment in this one. She wants to get down to the Olympics. So I think the South Africans, they are very much ready for this one, and that's why Coach Randy Wardrum should not take this lightly. We must get a very, very good point down here. So 3 points must be grabbed in this one. Good goals, of course. They should score more goals in this encounter, or else we might not, of course, get past this Bayana in this particular qualifiers.
Interesting features in the next 48 hours. We'll decide who gets it. Will it be the Bayana or it will be Super Falcons of Nigeria? First leg in Nigeria in the next 48 hours, and we'll see return leg fixture just about a week after in South Africa. Meanwhile, let's look at the 2025 World Cup club. We understand nominations have been done, and when 32 teams of the FIFA World Cup commences in 2025, a lot of people will have seen in Nigeria top side, Enyimba International, but it will not be, because they have been relegated down there in terms of ranking. Enyimba no longer having high ranking, and so the World Cup club in 2025 will feature no Nigerian club side.
So sad, so sad. Very, very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. Enyimba, you take a look at their performance at the continent in the last 3 years or 4 years. Mr. Siri has been very, very abysmal. They've not gotten a very impressive performance, at the continent. It is even Rivers United that have been there in the past 2 seasons now, at least trying to reach the quarterfinals of the CAF Confederation Cup, and that's why we're seeing this setback when it has to do with, rankings as well. I don't think Enyimba, they used to be one of the best when it has to do with continental games, of course, for the Nigerian league. But of recent, we're not seeing the best as well from them. And when CAF, whenever they turn their eye, they always look at Enyimba. And when they don't see them, of course, doing well, they'll take their eyes off from Nigeria, because apart from Enyimba, no other teams, traditional teams like Enugu Rangers, Plateau United, and the rest of them, they've not really lived up to expectation. And it's only Enyimba, of course, Cast of Force have been always looking up to. So what happened in the African Super League was another abysmal outing as well, for Enyimba. And that's why we're seeing this setback as well. But it is very, very disappointing that no Nigerian team, of course, will be in this particular World Cup.
No Nigerian team will be at the World Cup 2025, but an African team will be there, and that team, of course, is Ahali of Egypt. Courtesy of their excellent performance of winning the CAF Champions League in 2021 and 2 years thereafter in 2023. That is what you need to qualify for the Club World Cup coming up. Yes, Kingsley, you think Ahali of Egypt is very deserving of this recognition and, of course, nomination to be part of the FIFA Club World Cup in 2025?
I think yes, they actually merit this one, winning 2 Champions League titles. I think that's a very good one, of course, for a club, of course, to be rated or to qualify to play at the World Cup. It means, of course, they have what it takes. They have, when it has to do with structure and performance and record. That's what, of course, CAF actually looked at. And I think for me, Ahali, of course, have what it takes, to be at the World Cup.
Well, quickly before we look at round up our stories from Africa, we understand Cameroon, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon, will be looking the way of a foreign coach after ensuring that the services of their captain, former captain, was dispensed with at the national team level.
Let's see how it goes, for the Cameroon national team. Rigobert Song actually has been there for like 2 years now, and they've not really gotten something tangible.
We understand the president of the country, Paul Biya, has approved the appointment of a foreign head coach.
Let's see, maybe a foreign manager, of course, will do the job, for them. We saw them at the 2021 World Cup, African Cup of Nations, that, of course, Cameroon hosted. It was a bit of performance from them, but they didn't actually go find that particular one. And taking a look at, their performance as well at the African Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast was also nothing to write to. A lot of controversy. Andrew Onana and Rigobert Song, the players not living up to expectation. Some of the players, of course, forging their age, and some of the forging their age, and all of that. So I think a lot is really going on in that, in that Cameroon team. Maybe a foreign coach might be the solution to this particular, but let's keep our fingers crossed until we see the foreign coach first.
Let's keep our fingers crossed until we do see the foreign coach. And quickly now we'll go to Europe because we're running out of time. And of course, focus on most Nigerians especially is the Premier League in Europe, and qualification for Champions League places is getting very hot up. Only yesterday we saw Newcastle, Tottenham Hotspur play a 1-0 draw with West Ham. It looks like Spurs were going to get a point, get a maximum point in this one, but Everton had a completely new idea against Newcastle, while Spurs too had their issues with West Ham.
Yeah,
because it's about the top 4 now.
Yeah, it's about the top 4. Talking about Tottenham Hotspur, you talk about Aston Villa,
Newcastle,
and Newcastle, chasing that top 4 spot as well. Tottenham Hotspur, of course, we started the season like a house on fire with the manager Angel Postecoglou. We thought, of course, they were going to be that, formidable. And this time around, see, they're still struggling, for the top 4 spot. I think a little bit of setback, of course.
Playing at home against Everton.
Yeah, playing a game that was Newcastle.
Yes.
Playing at home against Everton. That was another game as well yesterday. Newcastle would have actually gotten that win. They scored in the first half of that particular game. Had a lot of chances, with that part to bury that game, but they couldn't actually send the ball into the back of the net. Not until Ashley Young actually came, of course, to get a penalty at the 88th minute of that particular encounter. I saw them, of course, getting that equalizer, through a penalty shootout. So for me, was a little bit of a setback, of course, a disappointment, for Newcastle they would have actually gotten that one right. But for Tottenham Hotspur, they still, stand a chance, of course, to fight for the top four. We still have about 8 games, remaining in the Premier League. I think they have what it is, of course, to still fight for the top 4 spot. Una Emery, of course, do not want to leave any stone unturned. He's also chasing for that top 4 spot, talking about Aston Villa. I think it's going to be a very tight one. It's going to be a very tight race when it has to do with the top 4 spots.
Well, while he's struggling at the top 4, the leadership of the league itself is getting interesting. A lot of people think it's a 3-way thing between Liverpool FC, Arsenal, and Manchester City. And at the weekend, it looks like that classification was made a bit clearer, because Liverpool has a 2-point lead now on the top of the Premier League table. Arsenal is second place, while Manchester City is third place, courtesy of a 1-point difference between second and the third place team.
Yeah, for me, it's a very tight race, Mr. Siri, because for what we've seen at this point in time, this is different Arsenal. We've seen this season. At this point of
they went to the Etihad Stadium
and got to draw.
And got to draw, and this is the first time any team would stop Manchester City from scoring a goal at home in 3 years.
I tell you, that's to show you that Arsenal, of course, they've really improved. They've actually gotten 4 good points, from City this particular season, and that's been a very long time. Of course, Arsenal, did that, in the Premier League. So for me, Arsenal are really looking very, very different. Liverpool are top of the table, but I don't think it is huru, for them at this point in time. Looking at the fact that the 3 teams, they still have 9 matches, of course, to play before the season comes to an end. And for what they need at this point in time is a perfect run. If any of the teams, of course, can be able to maintain a perfect run, I think it's going to actually help them, at this point in time. Some of them, of course, still have, very, very tough fixtures, ahead of them. But I think this time around, it's just for them, to keep their head cool and try to see how they can get good results from the remaining 9 matches remaining.
Well, talking about Premier League, tonight Arsenal will try to improve on their league table placing, second place placing, because they have Luton Town to contend with at the Emirates Stadium. Ordinary on paper, you think this will be a win for Arsenal, but this is Premier League, anything can happen. And that will be for this edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. We're definitely back at 6 p.m. Nigerian time for Sports Extraordinary, when we'll further x-ray some of the features that will be coming up tonight in England, Spain, and of course in France as well. Overall view of the latest happening around sports. Join us at 6 p.m. for Sports Extraordinary. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.
Killing him, not the counter punch.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara,